Hello, everyone. Hope you are doing great. And let's start with today's first story titled, Am I the a-hole to divorce my husband and leave him with the kid after finding out I'm not biologically the mom? I can't believe my life has come to this. All I ever do is go out of my way to help others. But on the few occasions I need help, nobody ever comes through for me. I, 36 female, have been with my husband, 35 male, for a total of almost 10 years, married for 7. We had what I thought was my child by surrogate over 2 years ago, because after 4 years of trying to conceive with no success despite medical interventions, it turns out I am unable to carry a child to term. I'd always wanted to be a mom. Devastated is an understatement regarding how I felt when I found out I have a medical condition that would make it nearly impossible to carry a baby to term. It was even more upsetting when I had to get a major surgery to remove uterine growths with the hope to increase fertility, and complications during surgery warranted a partial hysterectomy involving removal of my uterus only. I still had my ovaries, so we started looking into the cost of a surrogate. It is really expensive. My close friend since college, who already had 2 kids of her own, offered to serve as the surrogate for us to cut down on costs. After 2 disappointing IVF sessions that did not result in pregnancy, she became pregnant on the third try and carried a boy to term for us. I was so happy and busy after the birth, between being a mom and returning to work after a 4-week parental leave, so I didn't notice any warning signs. I should have noticed the red flags and warning signs early on, but did not because I was so exhausted from working so much at my stressful job and 2 part-time jobs to cover most of the bills, and anticipated medical and legal costs associated with this friend becoming our surrogate. I was the primary breadwinner. My friend and my husband started talking more, and I would sometimes come home from my weekend job to find her already hanging out at our house when my husband was there. I chalked it up as innocuous, and it's good for her to know my husband better since she was in the process of hopefully carrying our child for us. I was grateful to have someone helping us have a child. I also thought it weird that our son has brown eyes when both of us have blue. Then I found out that while this is uncommon, it's possible sometimes due to many genes controlling eye color. Recently, it all came to a head when I took our son to a doctor's appointment, and they did a metabolic panel and blood tests, which showed that he had a blood type that is not biologically possible to have with me as his mother. He's B+, I'm A+, and my husband is O+. Immediately, I started worrying it was the fertility clinic's fault, and that they'd messed up and implanted a wrong embryo. I started lining up lawyer consultations to possibly sue the clinic and looked into having a DNA parentage test done. The test results showed that I'm not the mother, but my husband still is the father. I was heartbroken and angrier than ever, talked to lawyers about medical malpractice in the fertility clinic we'd used. Then my husband confessed that he'd slept with my friend, our surrogate, on a few different occasions during our struggle to have her get pregnant with our embryos. This means what I thought was our son, conceived by IVF and carried with a surrogate, isn't my son at all and was in fact conceived the old-fashioned way, which I can't ever do. Livid and absolutely broken at the same time doesn't even begin to describe how I feel. I have been breaking down into crying spells over and over again about this. He claims he didn't ever think pregnancy could result because he pulled out and he had always assumed that he was the reason for our earlier struggles to conceive, both before my hysterectomy and during the IVF insemination process with this friend. I felt an immediate triple betrayal, from what was supposed to be my husband, my friend, and now knowing my child isn't even really mine. I had such white-hot rage and delirium, I immediately left home and stayed at a hotel for almost a week before asking my parents to let me stay at home for a while. I admit I left our son with him. I am now filing divorce because he cheated and betrayed me in the worst possible way. I have also cut off my friendship with my friend, the surrogate, and feel afraid to trust anyone else now. I have seen a divorce lawyer to see about giving up my legal rights to this kid so I don't have to face such betrayal or owe child support. My husband and friend surrogate admit they were wrong and keep apologizing, but also called me immature and heartless to just give up on my son like that. My parents also say I can't just give up on a kid that I went through so many legal and medical hoops to have. When I told them I refused to stay in a cheater marriage and I'd rather adopt someday with a better, more trustworthy partner, they also told me I was wrong and that maintaining my parental rights isn't much different than if I adopted outright. They said it isn't blood that makes a family. They are all about me divorcing my cheater husband, but keep telling me I'm making a mistake giving up my parental rights. Some of my other friends agree with what I'm doing. A few admitted they weren't big enough to swallow pride and care for an affair baby, or to see daily reminders of my friend's/surrogate's betrayal every time I look at her son. I just want a clean break and a fresh start. I'm also looking at relocating several states away. Am I the a-hole to give up my parental rights in the divorce because a kid I paid a lot of money to have been born by surrogacy isn't biologically mine at all, but the surrogates? TLDR, I recently found out that a son that my husband and I had born to a surrogate, since I'm infertile, is biologically my husband's kid but not mine. My husband confessed that he slept with my friend, who served as surrogate, during the long IVF process, so the kid is actually conceived of an affair between my husband and friend/surrogate. I am filing for divorce and looking to give up my parental rights so I can move away and get a clean break from the whole situation without having to owe child support for a kid that's not mine. Some friends agree with my plan, but my husband and parents think I'm in the wrong to just cut off a kid I raised for 2 years. OP, if your heart and mind aren't in it, I don't blame you for leaving. It's not your kid, so it's not your responsibility. And now to the update after 5 months. Update. I'm low on time right now, but we'll be posting a separate update post later. I'm not staying and I'm not caring for him anymore. I was not even offered a choice in the matter at all, which is why I've kept telling myself I shouldn't want to compare myself to men in a similar type of parentage situation, and have kept myself aloof toward the boy I thought was mine. I have no legal rights anymore no matter what because she fought to get her son back. I'm actually a lot more upset about losing this child than I presented in my post, and I'm realizing more and more with each passing day. The choice wasn't mine and I lost. I posted that I wouldn't want to be the sucker raising someone else's kid as more of a cope than anything. She got to have her kid, he left me, and I'm stuck with nothing. My best chance at still being this boy's guardian is to stay with that awful scrub of a guy, hope he lets me stay, and agreeing to let that friend have 50-50 custody and be the chump who still pays most of the bills for that unmotivated scrub soon of a witch in the meantime while he continues to cheat. It also came out that she wasn't his only affair either. He's been cheating all along for most of the time that we'd been trying without success to get pregnant. So for anyone who acts like I'm selfish, I make their blood boil. They can go screw themselves because they don't know me like that and I don't have any real choice in the matter. Him leaving is a blessing in disguise. He will cheat on her too. Karma will catch up with her. Go to therapy. Time will heal all the wounds. Wishing you all the best for your future. And next, the second story titled, I gave up trying to have a relationship with my family. And seeing them get their karma makes me incredibly happy. All I've ever wanted was for my family to accept me. I'm a child of divorce. Both my parents remarried, and because of those remarriages, I went from an only child to the oldest of 5 siblings. I was closest with my grandfather because both of my parents were busy pretending I don't exist and having a restart with their new family. I was unable to form any close bonds with my siblings because my parents feared I would manipulate them into thinking my parents are bad people. So I was isolated no matter if I was with my mother or father. I spent all my time alone in my room. I didn't eat any meals with them. When we had guests over, I was asked to go upstairs. Unfortunately, my granddad soon died of cancer when I was 16, but I was still close with my grandma. I spent every Sunday with her, and after school I'd usually eat lunch with her before dragging myself back home. Both my dad and my mom kept pushing me from one house to the other. No one really wanted me around, and they constantly argued that they just didn't have the space for me. But they also refused to let me live with my grandma. I moved away when I was 18 to study, and both my parents refused to pay any child support during that time, so I was forced to get a job immediately. That job saved my life. I quickly climbed the ladder even as a student because I was committed that I wanted this job once I graduated. Post-graduation, I was immediately invited to work in a management position. I invited my parents to my graduation since I was invited to give a speech, but neither of them showed up. That was the moment I decided I would stop trying. They didn't want me, and relieving myself of that weight was everything I ever needed. Now, I live around 100 kilometers away from my family in a small apartment with my cat and focus on my work. Neither of my parents bother to call, only my grandma does. Today, however, I did receive a rather confusing call from one of my step-siblings that asked me for a large sum of money. I don't know how stupid she thinks I am, because it didn't take me long to connect the dots that she was asking for my parents. Maybe they were embarrassed to ask me directly after how they've treated me. I politely declined, and now I have unopened messages from my mom. I don't want to look. I can live happily with the fact that karma finally got to them. The best revenge is living a good life. And now to the update. Today, I spoke with my grandma, and she explained to me that my father has cancer. That's most likely why my family is reaching out. Apparently, it's worse than I first thought, because my grandma has asked if I would be willing to visit her son, my father, with her because she could need someone to be there for her. It's been more than 5 years since I saw my parents in person. I don't think this is a good idea at all, and I'm really worried that they're going to manipulate me. At the same time, my Nan has sacrificed so much to get me to where I am today, and I feel like I owe her this. Would that make me the a-hole? Does anyone have any advice on how to handle a situation like this? You don't owe them anything. Actions have consequences. And the third story? Am I the a-hole for walking out of a family dinner after my parents insulted my Thai wife? My wife, Fa, 32 female, is from Thailand. We met while she was studying in the US, fell in love, and got married 5 years ago. She's an amazing woman, kind, hardworking, and incredibly smart. Unfortunately, my parents have never fully accepted her. From the beginning, they made offhand comments about her being a gold digger and only marrying me for a green card. No matter how many times I told them otherwise, they held on to this ignorant assumption. It doesn't matter that Fa has a successful career, makes her own money, she makes more than me, by the way, and has never asked me for a dime because in their eyes, she's one of those foreign women who trap American men. Last weekend, we had dinner at my parents' house. At first, things were civil, but then my dad smirked and said, "So, Fa, now that you've been married 5 years, do you finally get to keep your green card?" My mom laughed and added, "Guess you don't have to be on your best behavior anymore, huh?" Fa went pale. I was furious. I told them to cut it out, but my dad doubled down and said that they're just joking, but that we can't blame them for wondering how much of this marriage was for love and how much was for the visa. My mom nodded and said they just want to make sure I weren't taken advantage of. That was it. I stood up, told them we were not staying for dinner, and walked out with Fa. In the car, she was quiet, then finally asked me if they really think that way of her, which just broke my heart. Now my parents are saying I embarrassed them in front of the other family and overreacted. My brother says I should have just kept the peace and talked to them later. They are refusing to apologize, claiming it was just a joke. I don't regret standing up for my wife, but now I'm wondering if maybe I should have just waited until everyone else is gone to call them out on it. Edit. I am 33 years old. Didn't think to add it, but wanted to clarify, as some may think there's some huge age gap between us. Honestly, what's the joke here? Your parents are just racist pricks. You should have put your foot down years ago. And the last story? Am I the a-hole for publicly humiliating my wife at her workplace after discovering her affair? I don't even know where to begin. My wife, Leah, 43 female, and I have been married for 10 years. We have two beautiful children, our 5-year-old son and our 2-year-old daughter. I thought we were happy, or at least I thought we were trying. But 4 weeks ago, my entire life came crashing down. I, 46 male, started to notice when she was glued to her phone more than usual. Leah has always been private, but this was different. She'd smile at her screen, then immediately lock it when I walked into the room. One night after she fell asleep, I couldn't resist. I checked her phone. What I found still makes me sick to my stomach. There were messages with a coworker, Eric, 48 male, going back years. Explicit texts, photos, promises of love, even references to secret trips they'd taken while I was at home with the kids, believing she was working late. My heart was racing, my hands trembling. I confronted her the next morning. At first, she denied it, said I was misunderstanding. But when I read her the messages out loud, her face crumbled. She admitted it. She said it started 4 years ago, long before our youngest was born. She tried to justify it. You were distant, we were struggling. But nothing could excuse this. I started digging deeper. I followed her to work one day, needing to see it for myself. Sure enough, after her shift, she walked out arm in arm with Eric. They didn't even try to hide it. They got into his car and drove off. I followed them to a restaurant where they sat like a happy couple, laughing, holding hands. It broke me. But what shattered me completely was when I learned they'd built their own life together. They'd been renting an apartment near work, a place where she'd go when she was working overtime. I saw them go inside, watching them from my car parking on the streets, a few blocks away. I checked on them for about 4 nights, and they had the same routine. That's when I snapped. I packed all of her belongings, everything she owned, into the back of my car and drove to her workplace the next morning after spying on them. I know I did wrong. When she walked out, I dumped everything right there on the sidewalk in front of her and her coworkers. I told her she wasn't coming home. Since then, I've filed for divorce and am fighting for full custody of the kids. She's begging me to forgive her, saying she doesn't want to lose the family we built. But how can I? Friends and family keep asking me if I regret how I handled it, publicly humiliating her, kicking her out without notice. She tore our family apart, and the least she could do is face some accountability. But I can't help but feel like the bad guy for how I acted. I had nights where love felt very lonely, and I miss her. Of course, I am also attending to therapy sessions to be better for the kids and for myself. All I care about are them. They don't deserve this chaos. And as much as it hurts, I know they are better off with me than someone who could live a lie for so long. So am I the arsehole? Not the a-hole. She continued the affair even after being caught. This is a full-fledged relationship. Expose her to everyone. And now to the update. Turns out my wife's affair was worse than I thought. For those asking how I didn't notice her affair for 4 years, it's because Leah was always incredibly private. She was adamant about boundaries and would shut me down if I asked too many questions. She handled the rent, utilities, and her own expenses, while I covered groceries, the kids' school costs, internet, water, and anything extra. She claimed it was fair since we both worked, and I didn't push because I trusted her, and didn't want to create unnecessary conflict. Looking back, I can see how I missed the signs, but at the time, I didn't think questioning her was necessary. After finding out about her affair, I had DNA tests done for both kids. My son is biologically mine, but my daughter isn't. That was a tough pill to swallow, but it doesn't change anything for me. I've been her father in every way that matters, and I love her like my own. I believe the person who raises a child is their real parent, and no court is going to convince me otherwise. Right now, I'm in the middle of the legal process. The divorce itself hasn't been finalized yet, but I've made it clear that I'm fighting for full custody of both kids. I've explained to the court why I believe Leah isn't fit to have primary custody. Her betrayal wasn't just a personal one. It shows a complete disregard for the stability and well-being of our family. The court process is slow, and so far we've only had preliminary hearings. I've provided evidence of her infidelity and the double life she led, and I've asked for a full psychological evaluation for both of us to ensure the best decision is made for the kids. I'm also working on showing the court that I've been the primary caregiver emotionally and financially. My lawyer has told me it's a tough battle, especially since courts often lean toward joint custody, but I'm not backing down. To those who said my story sounded fake, I get it. This is the kind of nightmare you think only happens in movies or to someone else. I wouldn't believe it either if I wasn't living it. All I can say is, I hope you never go through something like this. It destroys everything you thought you knew about your life. For now, I'm staying focused on my kids and doing everything I can to give them a stable and loving home. They're the only good thing to come out of all this, and I won't let them down. Thank you for your support. It means more than you know. Damn, OP. Sorry to hear about the paternity of your daughter. I hope divorce goes smoothly for you. And that's it for today, folks. Dear viewers, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss out. See you next time. Bye-bye.